viewers of Frightbox Recording here to explain to you how bad lead guitar tone can sometimes be a good thing. Now, if you've been recording and dealing with heavy guitars or heavy guitar tone within metal or rock productions, you probably know by now that guitar tone is a major pain in the ass. It's often hard to get right. You want your tone crisp, but not too bitey. You want it full, but not muddy. It just in general takes a lot of effort. So now why am I sitting here telling you that bad lead guitar tone can be a good thing? Well, I'll explain to you. When we talk about guitar tone within a heavy production, we're really talking about the rhythm guitars. If you think about it, usually the rhythm guitars are one of the foundational elements of any heavy mix. Drums, bass, and rhythm guitars really are the bed of a mix. So if you have a weak rhythm guitar tone, you're pretty much in trouble. You can't build a solid mix without a solid rhythm guitar tone. Now, when it comes to lead guitars are generally in a completely different ballpark from rhythm guitar tone. They're usually panned in the center and often take the place of where a vocal should be sitting. And if we're not talking about guitar solos per se, they're usually in the background and are there just to fill gaps in the mix. In other words, they're accessory tracks. So because of this fact, when it comes to lead guitar tones, you have much more leeway when it comes time to sit down and mix. And what I want to do in this video is show you a real world example of how a bad lead guitar tone can actually work in your favor. So in this video, I'm using a heavy rock production. I'm going to play part of the bridge, which goes into the guitar solo, and I want you to pay close attention to the guitar solo. Afterwards, we're going to dissect that. I'm going to show you what's happening on the back end and explain to you how this bad guitar tone is actually helping me. Let's check it out. Okay, so while you were listening, you may have been thinking to yourself, that lead guitar tone doesn't sound bad, it actually sounds pretty decent. And the truth is, it sounds decent because it's in context of the rest of the mix. So now what I wanna do is I wanna solo the rhythm guitars for you. I recorded this track a long time ago, about 9 years ago, but even though it's an older recording of mine, I'm pretty happy with the heavy guitar tone, at least for the rhythm guitars. And let's take a listen to what those rhythm guitars actually sound like on their own. Okay, in my opinion, that's a pretty decent tone. It's bright without being overly fizzy. It's a little fizzy now that I hear it in solo, but it works with the mix and it's a pretty solid guitar tone. Now let's listen to this lead guitar tone. Now, when you hear the lead guitar in solo, it's not that great. It's nasally sounding. It almost sounds like it's slightly out of phase. It's just not a good guitar tone. I could never use this tone for a rhythm guitar track. It would never work for me. Now, at the time that I recorded this was not intentional. The rhythm guitars were reamped using a Marshall through a Mesa cab. And the lead guitars were actually recorded out of my house, not out of my studio, and I didn't have an amp on hand, so I had to use a very old Line 6 pod. Now, the older Line 6 pods, the pre-X3 era, I always found to be okay for lead guitars and overdubs, but again, I could never use them for my main guitar tone. But for whatever reason, I guess I was short on time and I had to track these solos out of my house, and that was the only thing I had on hand. But when I was mixing the track, and especially when I listen back now, this weaker tone actually helped me. Now, the reason why I'm saying it helped me is because the tone is so different from my rhythm guitars that your ear is automatically drawn to it and it's completely taking the place of the vocal, which is always the goal for a lead guitar solo, especially one that's happening when there's no vocals happening at the same time. The listener knows, okay, this is a new section of the song, there's some excitement there, it almost takes the place of the vocal. This is why while you were listening to the actual track in context, you probably thought the tone didn't sound bad at all. One, I had delay on it, which was time to the music, which helps it blend into the mix a little. Two, it's decently arranged and played. And three, the stark contrast between the lead guitar and rhythm guitar tone just really works and helps the part shine. So again, let's listen to the rhythm guitar tone in solo. And now the lead guitar tone. Again, the tone doesn't sound great in solo, but in context, it works. And just to show you some of the processing I had on my lead guitars, it was nothing fancy. I had a little bit of saturation to help warm it up because in my opinion, those older Line 6 pods were just very cold sounding. And a little bit of EQ, just a roll off on the low end and the top end to make room for the kick and bass, and to roll off any of the super duper top that was nasty and fighting with the cymbals. And a little bit of basic compression with a very, very low ratio, just to help give the tone a little bit of character. And aside from those basic effects like the EQ, saturation, and compression, I have a little bit of a stereo widener, it looks like, on the lead guitar. Let's see what's happening there. I have it set up on a send. I have the left side detuned by a few cents and the right side pitched up by a few cents, just to add some width to this lead guitar tone. I guess when I was mixing it, I really felt like it was weak and it needed some extra sauce just to help it sit in the mix a little better. And aside from that stereo widener, I just have some basic delay. That's it, and the delay is timed to the music. But again, just with this little bit of processing and just having the tone sat right in the mix and making sure the arrangement works, this bad lead guitar tone actually works. It's actually a good thing. I feel like this is stronger than if I were to have used the Marshall on the lead guitars because it really helps make the parts sound a little more interesting. It just helps make it pop. So again, let's listen to this section from the top of the bridge all the way through the solo and pay close attention to how this weird, strange, bad kind of lead guitar tone works with the mix. So there you have it, a real world example of how a bad lead guitar tone can actually be a good thing. Now, I'm not telling you to always intentionally record weird, strange, phasey sounding lead guitar tracks. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is be experimental and don't be afraid of using stranger tones for your lead guitar tracks because you can get away with it. Now, rhythm guitars are another story. You need a solid tone if you want a solid rock or metal production. And on the topic of solid guitar tone, you could download my custom impulse response for absolutely free. It's an impulse response of my favorite Mesa Boogie cab out of my studio, and there's a link below in the video's description. Just click on the link, download the impulse response, load it into your Amp Sim plugin, and dial in killer metal guitar tone with ease. So I'm curious to know, do you struggle with lead guitar tone, or have you found, kind of like I have, that it's very flexible and you can get away with almost anything? I'm curious to know your opinion and your take. Leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know. If you found this video helpful, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And do not forget to click the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I upload one of my weekly videos on all things metal and rock production. You can both like and follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Links are in the description below. And until next time, happy mixing.